Diverse Learner Workshops, or DLWs. First thing we want to do is find the directions. You can find them here in the assignment guidelines on Moodle, or you can find them in your print-based notebook.
Here in the assignment guidelines, you can see the table of contents that includes the SPED volunteer and interview, DLW guidelines, UDL lesson plan, and extra credit. DLW guidelines. I've provided many resources to help you. First being the guidelines, then your group assignments, and so who you're going to work with. Google Drive help documents. Google is one way that you can collaborate. A link to the collaboration template that you will be required to use. The overviews of each of the topics that will be covered, there are 6. Some examples in ways that you might format and include information. Possible other tools that you can use to present your final product, and web resources that will be a good place to start in addition to ones that are provided in this slide overview. So let's start with the guidelines. You also have access to the guidelines in your notebook. These have been revised, but only slightly. So the purpose of this assignment is various. One purpose is that you can begin to understand characteristics of diverse learners that you will encounter in your future practice. Another purpose is to work on those collaboration skills that are extremely vital to a functional school faculty team. And then there's the purpose of practicing your communication skills with various audiences. As a classroom teacher, you will be speaking with parents, principals, teachers, paraprofessionals, other related professionals. And so when you're doing this, the information that you present and how you present it must meet the needs of your audience. And so this is an opportunity for you to practice changing the way you present based on who your audience is. And we're really looking for the high impact strategies that are going to be effective for multiple students. Here are the course objectives that this particular assignment meets. And so specifically, you will research, collaborate, and post the following information for each topic. And you will have 2 artifacts that are submitted. You only need 1 person in your group to submit, and it will show up for everyone. You need a final product, and you need your project collaboration spreadsheet. So what is included? For every topic, these 6 items must be included. 1 is looking at common characteristics. So in a classroom, how might I identify this student? What am I looking for? What makes this characteristic different from something different? For example, a very easy characteristic to identify, if I have a student who has a visual impairment, I'm going to be looking for a student who is tired, who moves to the front of the room in order to see, who might be missing details in their writing or in their reading because of peripheral vision challenges. So those are characteristics that I can look for in my classroom. I also want to be thoughtful of the barriers. So when a student has a challenge of a visual impairment, what barriers might they experience academically with their materials and the methods that I might choose to use in teaching? What barriers might they experience socially, behaviorally, physically? So this is going back to the physical environment from the first week of lessons. And then also academic language. So how are they able to use academic language effectively for learning in the classroom? But it's not all about deficits or barriers. We also want to look at strengths. So what strengths does a child bring to the classroom? And for these strengths, I'm going to refer you to the class UDL Learning Profile activity that is completed in week 2. The list of strengths and barriers or weaknesses for each of the strategic, affective, and the recognition networks of the brain will help you identify some strengths. Fourth, what resources are available to you as a classroom teacher? Who at your school can you talk to? Is there a professional, a special ed teacher that's on campus that you can talk to, or an audiologist or a school counselor? Who would be the appropriate people for me to talk to? Perhaps a reading interventionist. And then I also want you to identify some reputable online resources. So I gave you some links to some national agencies, and there are others that are out there that would be a good place to begin with. But then also, are there any local organizations or supports that you might be able to refer parents and students to that can support their child? The fifth piece of this final product is to identify 3 strategies, either instructional, behavioral, or organizational, that are appropriate for supporting the students in your classroom. Now, each strategy must come back and link to one of these barriers that you identified. And each strategy must be linked to a component of UDL. For example, you might say 5.1, use multiple media for communication, and the barrier that I'm addressing is to use an AAC board, which is an augmented communication board, to address the barrier of a student having social and academic language interaction with peers because they are what we call nonverbal. And then the last thing is to have citations of all your information reported. So here's the workflow, or how I see this happening. Components 1 through 6 is happening in your group, and then in that final product and the coordination spreadsheet, this is what you're going to be sending to me. So let's look at what the coordination collaboration worksheet looks like. So in this worksheet, let's make it a little smaller. So we can see more of it. You see up here, role, audience, format, topic profile. This is called your raft, and I'll address that in a moment. But then you see the names of your team members, and each of those 6 components listed plus the final product. So this collaboration sheet is going to be used as a way of communicating with each other and with me who's taking responsibility for which pieces. Now, it's up to you and your group. I would strongly encourage you to change and rotate through the different topics. The final product tends to be a very big piece of this, and for the same person to do the final product every time might be an undue burden. And to do the final product and not do any of the other pieces to help, to not do any of these components and only do the final product is not acceptable. So the final product is an addition to helping do the research. You are going to create one of these collaboration matrices for each of the following topics. So I've created 3 for you down here. You can create the other 3. And you can create your own, or you can make a copy. So here are your directions for how to make a copy of this document. And when you rename your document, it should have your group number and the type and workshop, or DLW is fine. To share, file, share, you're going to put in your group members' names and my name and click done. So that is the collaboration worksheet. So now let me review the raft. So what is a raft? A raft, role, audience, format, topic, is a strategy that you can use in your classes to provide your students with different opportunities to show what they know in different ways. And it's primarily a project or a writing focus. So here, if you were to choose this top row, you're going to assume the role of a special education teacher. The audience that you're writing to are parents. So what does a parent need to know that's different from what a principal needs to know? And you're going to do this in a newsletter format, and your topic is going to be on a new diagnosis. So as you're doing your research on these elements, you want to maintain the focus of how does this fit into telling a parent in a newsletter about a new diagnosis. You might take the role of a general education teacher who is providing a 5 to 10 minute professional development training. So what do peer teachers need to know about your topic in this training? The way that each of these DLWs will be graded is as follows. So each week they're worth 6 points. 3 points are individual, 3 points are group. If you do not do your part, you will lose half of your points. You will also impact the grades of your team members. If you, as a team member, do your part and someone else does not do their part, you will get all 3 of your points, but you might lose a point in the group grade. It's very important that you communicate with each other, but also communicate with me if there is a challenge, if someone is not being collaborative. At the end of the semester, you will have the opportunity to provide feedback on your team member's contribution for an overall look at how they collaborated. And so this is a separate grading item in which you do have an opportunity to help your peers hopefully understand how they were a positive team member or some areas of opportunity where they might be able to make some improvements. And that is the DLW.